group members that we have for you guys.
Okay.
Oh, you're good.
They're like
Some of them on there.
written, so never read what it says.
Yeah. If you could just start out maybe explaining simply what, give us a simple definition of what biodiversity is. Either.
Sure, yeah. I mean, what I think biodiversity is, well, I think most commonly it means diversity of species, but I think it can also include things like genetic diversity or diversity of ecosystems. And I guess I'm doing the cardinal sin, which is including the word in the definition. So diversity just means different, and bio is life, so different forms of life. So different number of species or different number of ecosystems or different amount of genetic material.
Okay.
I guess that's what I would think. My definition.
Yeah, I think that's great. I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Okay. We've learned a little bit about 3 ways to measure, there's probably more, but 3 ways to measure biodiversity. We talked about species richness, evolutionary diversity, and trait diversity. Could you maybe briefly explain each of those, or if you have heard? I don't even know if this was just one of the articles she gave us, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
remember.
let's see. I mean, species richness, you're looking at the diversity of species.
Right.
So how many species are present? Like we're doing work with birds where we're doing banding projects and looking at the species richness, and it's basically just like what birds are here, and then you can also go further, do further analysis to see what birds are here in what densities, how rare are they passing through, and I think that factors into a lot of conservation, because you can say that there's a lot of species richness, but maybe the usage of that habitat is actually not that high, so that can kind of factor in.
Okay.
So the other 2 are genetic diversity and
There's trait diversity.
Trait diversity and evolutionary diversity. But maybe just in general, like what are the ways that you guys measure, how do you measure biodiversity?
Well, I think it's tricky because the definition kind of does encompass several different things. So Evan did a really good job of explaining how to measure species richness. If you're working with birds, you go out and capture birds and see what different species you are capturing, and the number of each one of those species that you're capturing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of genetic diversity a lot because we talk about that a lot in some of our classes, and so that's where you're actually taking a look at one single species and seeing how genetically diverse they are. And what would be a good example of that? Even if you think about how genetically diverse humans are, the human race are, and the concept of inbreeding, and you don't want to marry your cousin or your sister because that can cause some pretty serious problems if you're going to produce offspring. And it's the same exact thing with animal and plant species. So you want to make sure you have genetic diversity to maintain trait diversity.
Yeah, and I think also the whole species concept is such a. We have different definitions of species, but it's a very hard to pin down what a species is exactly. So say here we're doing bird banding in Red Butte Canyon, and we're catching a lot of bird species called the dark-eyed junco. But within that, there's either 6 or I think 7 subspecies of that. And they look like totally different, but it's all the same species. And so you have all these different traits that are, related to kind of adaptation to these other, environments within their general range. And so I think in all species, maintaining as much genetic diversity as you can enables them to, if there is a change in climate, if there's a change in habitat through human alteration, then the more genetic diversity they have, the more able they're going to be to adapt and work around difficulties.